Tree by Elsa Marston. For many years, the stone house next to Samir's home had stood empty. When Samir asked his mother about it, she would sigh. "Ah, what a pity! Before the war, nobody cared who was of one religion and who was of another. But when the fighting started, things changed. Our neighbours felt uneasy because they were different from most of the village. So they left. What a pity! Now, thank goodness, the long war was over. At last, the family who owned the house was coming back. Under the old olive tree, Samir leaned against the stone wall that stood between the two houses and watched every move in the yard next door. People were carrying in mattresses, chairs, saucepans, everything needed to bring a house back to life. Samir hoped the neighbours would also have a boy. They could have such fun, roaming the mountainsides, kicking a football on the street, eating the sweet ripe figs, and climbing the olive tree. He glanced up at the gnarled old branches. That tree, his mother always said, gave the best olives in Lebanon. And what is life for the Lebanese without olives? Every year she pickled many jars with lemons and hot pepper, and his family had enjoyed those olives for as long as Samir could remember. But now he wondered whether that might change too. The neighbours soon settled back into their house. They were always polite, but they did not return visits or the welcoming gifts of fruit and sweets. Samir heard his parents say that they still seemed to feel uneasy. What's more, they did not have a son. Instead, they had a daughter named Nada. She looked the same age as Samir, but she would have nothing at all to do with him. Sometimes, standing by the wall in the shade of the olive tree, he watched Nada helping her mother or playing by herself. But he never saw her look his way. As the heat of summer passed, the green olives started to ripen. They fell to the ground, and as always, Samir gathered them in a basket. One morning when he was picking up olives, he noticed Nada at the wall. For a while she watched him in silence, and at last she spoke. "Those are our olives, you know, ours." Straightening up to face her, Samir said, "They're on our land." "Yes, but the tree is on our land," said Nada. "It grows in our soil, and its roots drink the water in that soil. It has belonged to my family for 100 years. Samir sighed. Yes, what she said was true. The tree did belong to Nada's family. But olive trees often twist into strange shapes as they grow, and while the trunk of the tree stood firmly on the neighbour's land, most of its limbs stretched far over the wall. They dropped the best olives in Lebanon right into Samir's yard. "Listen," he said. All the time you people were away, we took care of this tree. We pruned it and watered it. We also have a right to the olives." "But now we're back," said Nada, "and we'll take care of it. We shall have the olives." Samir glared at her. Then he leaned over the wall, dumped his basket of olives into her yard, turned his back, and walked away. Let Nada have them. After that, the olives went on dropping into Samir's yard and simply lay in the dust. Nobody gathered them. One night, a fierce autumn storm rolled over the mountains. Thunder boomed, lightning flashed, and one terrible bolt seemed to shake the whole world. At daybreak, Samir rushed outside to see what had happened. The olive tree was gone. Only a shattered stump remained. Pieces of the pale wood lay scattered over the yards of the two families, and the beautiful silvery green leaves were blown far and wide. The stone wall, too, had been broken. Nada and her family came and stood on their side, while Samir's family stood on theirs. Everyone stared at what was left of the tree. Then, one by one, the grown-ups drifted sadly back into their houses. Samir remained, his eyes stinging with tears. How he would miss that tree! No more cool shade from the softly whispering leaves. No more twisted branches to climb on. And no more of the best olives in Lebanon. Then Samir noticed Nada, standing in the doorway of her kitchen. Slowly she came over to the broken wall. He turned to leave, but as she started to speak, he paused. "They always told me about this tree," she said quietly. "I wondered if I would ever see it. It seemed like my home, my parents' and grandparents' home that they nearly lost. And now it's gone." Samir wanted to tell Nada, "Your family didn't have to go away. You could have stayed here. We would have been friends and could have shared the olives." But it did no good to say that now. Instead, with a sigh, Samir again looked around at the 2 yards, both strewn with the wood of the olive tree. "Well," he said shortly, "at least you've had lots of firewood this winter. It's all yours." "Yours?" He picked up a couple of large chunks, stepped over the broken wall, and laid them next to Nada's house. As he continued carrying wood to her yard, gradually his heart ached a little less, for at least he was tending carefully to what was left of his old friend, the olive tree. Then, turning back from his 3rd trip, Samir stopped short in surprise. Nada had gone over to his yard. And there she, too, was picking up pieces of wood and piling them. So the two worked on, each in the other's yard, as the sun rose higher. Without words, they cleared up all the olive wood, each stacking it neatly against the other's house. And when at last Samir went home, he found on the chair by his door a little pile of perfect olives, carefully salvaged from among the splinters and withering leaves.